Hello, it's Scott Manley here, and today I want to look at Star Wars Squadrons. Yes, it's a video game, which of course, I love video games, I love spaceship video games, and I especially love Star Wars because it's been, so important to making me who I am. 20 years ago, the X-Wing and the TIE Fighter games were sort of the pinnacle of PC gaming as far as I'm concerned. They stopped being made, and in their place we did have things like Rogue Squadron, which was a lot of fun, but they lacked a lot of the depth. But EA got the Star Wars license a few years ago, and unfortunately they used it to churn out like crap mobile games and first-person shooters, which I didn't care about, although they did have spaceship levels. I frankly wasn't that interested. But finally, they took the assets from Battlefront 2 and made a spaceship-dedicated game. So yeah, I'm just like showing you, how the game starts up. This is me finding the only character that has my efficient hairstyle. Looks kind of feminine, but I'm okay with that. We have a fairly diverse set of pilots on both sides. I'm kind of disappointed you can't pick an alien type X-Wing pilot. So yeah, it's really pitched as a squadron battle game, but there is a story attached to it. And so far, I've played like 4 or 5 hours and had plenty of diversity in the story. The story starts out with a bit of a prologue. After the destruction of Alderaan, we have Darth Vader sending Imperial commanders to hunt down any rebels that escaped. So yeah, we get to see a bit of Admiral Sloane, who's always a fan favourite, sending a TIE fighter, squadron leader off to basically hunt down Alderaanian refugees. Because, the Empire is all about ruling by fear. Yeah, so you start out, you get a little introduction to a bunch of people on the Imperial side. If you're not familiar with the extended universe, you might not know some of these characters, but many of the characters have histories far beyond this game. But obviously, this is you getting introduced to some important people. Yeah, the assets are pretty much brought from other games in the EA universe, the EA have developed, and so I'm gonna say the Imperial landing deck here looks pretty darn good. There's some great, it's great that you can just sort of look around and see stuff. That's an Inquisitor TIE fighter on top, and these are sort of regular TIE LN class. But most importantly, you can get in the TIE fighter, and I'm gonna say this is me playing on the desktop, but this game supports full VR. So, if you want to stick on your VR headset and play TIE Fighter pilot, that's great.
No problem.
I will point out that TIE Fighters do not have the largest amount of peripheral vision. You pretty much can only see ahead anyway, but at least in the X-Wing you can see a lot more. I'm playing this with my X52, the Societech X52 HOTAS, so I've got like a ton of buttons. I'm controlling the entire game from the stick and the throttle. But it did take me forever to set up this control scheme. The first time I launched out of this, I immediately crashed into the Star Destroyer because someone at the game dev company thought that if you pushed your flight stick forward, that meant to go up. I don't know how you make that kind of mistake when you're making a spaceship flying game, but hey. This is also available for PlayStation, Xbox, where it's all going to be gamepad. But if you're a PC, you can play it with a mouse and keyboard, or your flight stick, or a good old-fashioned, gamepad. I'm going to say it's quite fun playing it with the joystick. And yeah, you have a lot of different spaceships here. You see, you've got the Architens cruisers. These are, again, from the Rebels TV series. There's an Imperial class Star Destroyer, a Quasar down there, and also see the Gozante class light carriers. If you look in some of my videos where I'm talking with the shells behind me, you can see the Gozante model up in the top left, I guess. Because I like Star Wars, yeah. I think I've mentioned that a few times. This really does look the part. I like the fact that you can actually see the shields of the Star Destroyer, and when you dive inside the shields of a capital ship, you can actually attack the stuff inside it, like the gun turrets, without having to break down the shields. So look, the game absolutely looks the part, but we've had several games that look the part. Does it do the important things that we used to see from these classic X-Wing games? Well, I can confirm, hey, look, we have the actual models, the freighters that we saw in the original X-Wing games. They're in here. That's like a callback to the old X-Wing universe. We have the power remapping, right? Send power to shields, to engines. Great. We have capital ships shooting smaller ships and whole range of Star Wars assets. We have complex missions, although I think the missions are kind of linear. There are a few ways you can skip beyond the structure. Like, I've actually played through some of the missions several times, and there's no secret objectives that I've managed to encounter at this point. But I'm going to say they're well laid out, and they seem like there's a lot going on. In this case, you start out as an Imperial pilot heading towards a hive of scum and villainy. A trade post on the edge of, I don't know, known civilized space, I suppose. And you're looking for rebel scum, also known as refugees, that have just escaped their planet being destroyed by the Death Star. And you can't have refugees escaping exploding planets if you're the Empire and ruling by fear. So of course this turns into a fight. After all, just murdering, freighter convoys isn't that much fun. You end up meeting some X-Wings, and yeah, in this case I actually crashed a bit. Now, if you played the original TIE Fighter, which is, as far as I'm concerned, one of the best spaceship games ever, in that you could get hit like 3 times and then you were dead. In this, your TIE Fighter is a lot tougher, but they've also got the ability to repair the TIE Fighter. You have like a recharging, module or whatever, and you hit the button and it fixes some of your hull structure, and your pilot pushes buttons and your hull structure magically comes up. So it's not nearly as realistic as the original, although I guess if you're a hardcore pilot you could just ditch that module and show how cool you are. For me, I had to use it quite a bit because I was just far too aggressive. There's also a little bit of aim correction going on, so if you get roughly in the right area, it will tend to bend your shots towards the target. So yeah, of course, you get to the station, and then we figure out where the rebels are. They're hiding in this tunnel. Yes, the rebels are hiding in there, so we get to go like, Death Star number 2 and fly down tunnels in a TIE Fighter. It doesn't seem quite as fast as Return of the Jedi. And of course, at this point, we get to that moment of curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal as your squad leader decides that he can no longer murderize innocent refugees. Yeah, I know, this is probably a bit of spoilers, but this is in the first 10 minutes of the game. Come on, guys.
After all, Iran, I can't ignore what the Empire's become.
And so after that thrilling introduction to the Empire, you switch sides, and you now get introduced to your rebel persona. And you start flying the opposite side of the mission. You are now trying to rescue those rebels that with an Imperial defector on their side. The X-Wing flies great. I love the fact that in VR, you can really look around and see what's going on. The Rebels' X-Wings also have shields, so you've got a bit more power management going on. They're not quite as agile as the TIE Fighter. They also, I don't know, I don't think they take as damage as neatly. But yeah, you find, so this whole story is initially structured as a tutorial. So this is like, hey, you can use your boost skills underneath the Star Destroyer and evade everything, and it looks pretty damn amazing. Even though there's a scripted moment where your wingman or wing person gets shot. But make no mistake, this game is balanced around the concept of player versus player in the squadron battle. So you're going to find that there's actually a lot of each side has similar capabilities if you set them up correctly. And you're ultimately going to be flying with whatever loadouts work and whatever capabilities are you're happy with. In terms of the stories, you're generally asked to use specific loadouts that are thematically appropriate. So yeah, here's me just shooting down some TIE Fighters in my X-Wing and loving the heck out of it. By the way, also, I've turned the music way down because I know that copyright is going to be a big issue. If it hears too much of the Star Wars theme, I'm going to get hit by, copyright licensing issues. But rest assured, the soundtrack is pure John Williams Star Wars awesomeness. Everything that you've ever remembered, it's all in here. And it does seem to have some sort of dynamic activity. If you remember the original X-Wing games, were some of the first games to actually have dynamic soundtracks where, you know, the Star Destroyer would jump in and the music would transition and play like an Imperial fanfare. This game definitely seems to have that kind of structure going on. What you'll find, however, is that some of the missions require you to do specific things. You know, you'll have beaten the bad guy and then nothing will happen until you regroup with the person that's running the mission. So if you're not paying attention, you might miss an order and you might find yourself off in the wrong place and they're sort of twiddling their thumbs and the mission doesn't progress until you return back to some neutral position. In terms of like the tutorial is all built into these first few missions. They keep introducing new concepts and they kind of force you to do them. Like, and sometimes there's problems where they don't really explain it well. So they showed us how to do some sort of in-space drifting thing. The tutorial wasn't particularly good at explaining how to do that, and I actually had to go out to the internet and read it up, and then I understood what they were saying in game. So, just, these are things that, you know, in the old days we had a manual, a paper manual, and it had a lot more detail, and I kind of like those. I'm kind of missing this, to be honest. But the game is certainly delivering in terms of Star Wars spectacle. So yeah, as far as I know, there's 4 craft on each side you can fly. On the Rebel side, you've got the X-Wing, the A-Wing, and the Y-Wing. You cannot fly the B-Wing, unfortunately, but there is the U-Wing, which of course is the transport ship they used in Rogue One. On the Imperial side, you have the TIE Fighter, the Interceptor, and the Bomber. You don't have the TIE Defender, you don't have the TIE Advanced, or the whatever. But what you do have is the TIE Reaper, which is, if you remember again, Rogue One, it's the troop transport ship that's used to drop, you know, the sand troopers or whatever, the shore troopers, that's what they were in Rogue One. So this is set up, you've got your standard fighter, you've got your fast fighter, and you've got your bomber, and then you have your supply ship. And of course, all these are supposed to then feed into the multiplayer game, where in theory you have 5 players on each side. One of them might be doing logistics and dealing, you know, delivering weapon upgrades and armor or whatever, whereas the rest of the team is coordinating on killing targets. I'm gonna be clear, that's the theory. All I cared about when I bought this game was, did it have a single player campaign? And yeah, it's had me playing it for enough hours that I feel I've got my money worth. It is only $40, which is fantastic. I think a lot of this is because they have saved a lot of money by reusing a lot of existing assets. So they didn't need to spend half as much money working on it. But we have all the spaceships they were just able to take from the Battlefront games. A lot of the engine and character art and things like this, sound effects, all that stuff. I'm so happy that they let somebody do that, because, you know, I kept on hearing from the game developers that, well, you know, I know so many people are asking for a spaceship game, but nobody plays the spaceship levels on Battlefront. And frankly, I don't play the spaceship levels on Battlefront because I don't play Battlefront. I'm just not interested. I'm not really that interested in multiplayer. I'm more... The problem I find with a lot of online multiplayer games is that they're all about battles. Whereas anybody that's studied history knows that battles can be decisive, but wars are won by the logistics. And the only game that really does that for you is EVE Online, where you've got to run your supply lines correctly. You've got to have your logistics teams backing you up. And yeah, I've never really felt the love for these run and gun games where it's just very limited arena battles. So anyway, after the initial pair of missions where you play on each side, it fast forwards 4 years to after the Battle of Endor. Emperor's gone, Darth Vader's gone. It's now the scattered Imperial fleet against the New Republic. And, well, you know, if you're a Star Wars fan, they talk very quickly about the mysterious project Starhawk. Of course, anyone that knows a decent amount about Star Wars knows what Starhawk is. You are plunged in with a team of interesting pilots. A diverse team, I think, is the exact term. I mean, you're flying with Trandoshan, for example, on your team. Whereas on the Imperial side, you have a similar collection of characters, you know, from different parts of the Empire, doing all the things they do. You have person that doesn't remove their helmet, and of course you have Major Von Reg, who exists again elsewhere in Star Wars canon. And on the Rebel side, I've already met Wedge Antilles and Hera Syndulla. So I'm very much enjoying, flying through these set pieces in the Star Wars universe. Now, in terms of the flight model, it isn't particularly good in terms of simulation. It's certainly better than anything we've had in the Star Wars universe for 20 years, but it doesn't compete with, say, Elite Dangerous in terms of the flight model and the ability to adjust your ship systems and things like this. But yeah, if you're just looking, if you're not really familiar with space games and just want to fly around in an X-Wing, and you want something deeper than what you've seen elsewhere, this is great and it's totally enjoyable. And if you are a Star Wars fan, there's enough in it to just make you happy. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of want people to just enjoy this game, because if they buy this game, then we're gonna get more games, and that can only be a good thing. I want them to add a mission designer so that we can have more of these set pieces, more of these things. Sure, there's a multiplayer, ouch. Yeah, there we go. You see me crashing into the spaceship and then pushing the buttons to fix it. And I'm sure you'd be doing a lot of that in multiplayer. Yeah, so multiplayer, it's 5 versus 5, I believe, and there's a whole fleet battle thing where you're trying to take areas of the battlefield or whatever. I haven't played it, and I'm probably not going to have time to play it. So even without that, though, I felt I've got my money's worth. But if you're into competitive stuff, then maybe you might get a lot more out of it. I would love this game to be successful, just to show to EA and other developers that we're not all interested in first-person shooters and loot boxes. We like spaceships, and we want to have spaceships that are fun to fly. If you watched me on Twitch, you actually saw that when I was playing this campaign for the first time, I was dressed as an X-Wing pilot with a helmet and the outfit and everything. But that's how much of a nerd I am, and I'm not ashamed of it. My biggest problem with that, of course, is I don't have an outfit for a TIE Fighter pilot, so I'm going to have to 3D print a helmet and then come back to this. So yeah, Star Wars Squadrons out now. It's $40. It's available everywhere, and it does VR, and it lets you fly spaceships. What else do you need to know? I'm Scott Manley. Fly safe.